I've built my entire career on a habit that most people would call a productivity sin: procrastination. I'm talking about binge-watching an entire TV series to avoid writing one article. I was the king of last-minute panic, of starting massive tasks the night before they were due, fueled by nothing but caffeine and pure adrenaline. I was always behind, constantly stressed, and drowning in guilt. But what if I told you that same habit is now my secret weapon? That the act of putting things off somehow became the key to my productivity? In this video, I'm going to share how I turned my worst habit into a superpower, not by getting rid of it, but by changing what I procrastinated on. For years, I just thought I was lazy. That's what we're told, right? If you put things off, you don't have discipline. You're unmotivated. But the truth is, procrastination is almost never about being lazy. For me, it was this messy mix of fear and just feeling overwhelmed. Psychologists have found that procrastination is usually an emotional regulation problem, not a time management one. We put tasks off because they make us feel bad, inadequate, bored, or anxious. My biggest demon was perfectionism. I'd stare at a blank page for a new project, and my brain would just fizzle out. The fear of not doing it perfectly was so paralyzing that it felt safer to do nothing at all. That blank document wasn't just a document. It was a stage, and I was terrified of a bad performance. So I'd escape. I'd fall down a rabbit hole of pointless YouTube videos, clean my keyboard with a Q-tip, or decide that right now was the perfect time to learn how to bake sourdough from scratch. This just created a vicious cycle. The longer I waited, the bigger the task seemed, and the more guilt I felt. That guilt would drain my energy, making it even harder to start. It's a downward spiral that an estimated 20% of adults are stuck in as chronic procrastinators. And I was definitely one of them. My to-do list wasn't a roadmap. It was a monument to my failures, a daily reminder of everything I hadn't done. I figured that to be successful, I had to declare war on this part of myself. I tried every trick in the book: super strict schedules, website blockers, you name it. Nothing worked, because I was trying to fight my own nature instead of understanding it. The real breakthrough didn't come from some productivity guru or a fancy app. It came from a simple, kind of backward idea I stumbled upon, a concept from Stanford philosopher John Perry called structured procrastination. The core idea is this: procrastinators rarely do absolutely nothing. They do other, kind of useful things to avoid doing something more important. Think about it. When you're avoiding that huge, terrifying report for work, suddenly, organizing your email inbox or cleaning out the garage seems like a brilliant idea. You're not just sitting there. You're being productive, just not on the one thing you're supposed to be doing. Reading this was like someone finally turned the lights on. I had been trying to force myself to stop procrastinating, which, for a natural procrastinator, is like trying to hold back the ocean. The key wasn't to stop the behavior, but to work with it. What if, instead of avoiding my main task by watching TV, I could avoid it by doing something else that was also valuable? This shifted everything. The goal was no longer to become a different person, a non-procrastinator. The goal was to become a better procrastinator. It was about accepting that my brain would always try to dodge the single most intimidating task on my plate, and building a system that used this impulse to my advantage. Instead of channeling that avoidance energy into useless distractions, I could point it toward other productive work. It was all about making my bad trait work for me. So, I started experimenting. I didn't get rid of my to-do list. I redesigned it. I turned it from a list of dread into a strategic tool for productive avoidance. And I came up with a system that follows 3 simple rules. First, rule number 1, create a tiered to-do list. This is the foundation of the whole system. I stopped making one long, flat list of tasks and started sorting them by how scary they were. Tier 1 asterisk: this is for the most important, most intimidating task. The big project, the difficult phone call, the one thing my brain wants to run away from. I usually only have one of these at a time. Tier 2 asterisk: this is for other valuable, necessary tasks that are less scary than Tier 1. Things like answering important emails, outlining a future project, doing research, or paying bills. These tasks still move the needle, but they don't trigger that same sense of dread. Tier 3 asterisk: these are the small, low-energy, maintenance tasks. Think tidying my desk, updating software, or organizing digital files. They're perfect for when I feel stuck but still want to feel like I did something. The magic here is psychological. By putting a huge, scary task at the top of my list, Doing the Tier 2 tasks now feels like procrastination. Instead of feeling guilty for avoiding that Tier 1 article, I feel clever for getting my inbox to zero or for finally scheduling those appointments. I'm basically tricking my brain into being productive. Second, rule number 2, always have a productive escape hatch. I realized that giving myself only one major project was a recipe for disaster. For a procrastinator, a list with just one thing on it means the only way to avoid it is to do nothing useful at all. So now, I always have a main project, a Tier 1 task, and a valuable side project running at the same time. When I hit a wall with my main work, instead of opening up social media, I just switch to the side project. This ensures that even when I'm procrastinating, I'm building something, learning something, or making progress somewhere else. Finally, rule number 3, use the 5-minute rule. This is a popular little trick that serves as my secret weapon against getting totally stuck. When I'm avoiding a Tier 1 task, and even a Tier 2 task feels like too much, I make a deal with myself. Just work on something, anything productive, for 5 minutes. A lot of the time, just getting started is the hardest part. After 5 minutes of organizing my notes, the mental barrier is broken, and I might just keep going for another 20 minutes. And if I don't, I still spent 5 minutes doing something useful, which is way better than 5 minutes of mindless scrolling. It keeps things moving. And hey, if this idea of reframing procrastination is making sense to you, do me a favor and hit that like button. It's a small click, but it tells me this is valuable and helps the video reach more people who might be stuck in that same guilt trap. Once I started using this system, the changes were huge and in ways I never expected. First, my creativity shot through the roof. It turns out that when you step away from a tough problem and work on something else, you're giving your brain time for what scientists call incubation. My best ideas for articles almost never happened when I was staring at the screen, trying to force them out. They'd pop into my head when I was procrastinating by organizing research notes or going for a walk. That mental break let my subconscious keep chipping away at the problem in the background, connecting ideas in new ways. It felt less like work and more like just finding a solution. Second, my anxiety and guilt pretty much disappeared. This was maybe the most life-changing part. My old procrastination was fueled by a cycle of avoidance and negative self-talk. But productive procrastination replaces that with a feeling of accomplishment. Even on days when I couldn't bring myself to touch my main project, I'd end the day having done a dozen other things. I had cleared out my admin tasks, planned my week, and maybe even cleaned my apartment. That constant feeling of small wins was the perfect antidote to the paralysis of perfectionism. I was no longer defined by the one thing I didn't do, but by the many things I did. And finally, my total output exploded. This is the big paradox. By strategically letting myself procrastinate, I started getting more done than ever. Before, I'd delay and delay, then pull an all-nighter to finish just that one big project. Now, by the time I finally get to my Tier 1 task, often with the helpful pressure of a deadline, I've already finished a mountain of Tier 2 and Tier 3 work along the way. I was no longer just a last-minute hero on one project. I was a consistently productive person across my whole life. I had become, as John Perry put it, a useful person who gets a lot done. For my entire life, I fought against my own procrastination. I saw it as a character flaw, a sign of weakness. But I was wrong. Procrastination isn't a flaw, it's a signal. It's your brain telling you that a task is triggering a negative emotion, fear, boredom, self-doubt. The solution isn't to shut that signal up with brute force, but to listen to it and redirect its energy. By using structured procrastination, you're not giving up. You're being strategic. You're acknowledging your natural tendencies and building a system where even your avoidance instincts lead to good outcomes. You trade wasted time for worthwhile tasks. You swap guilt for a sense of accomplishment. So, here's my challenge to you. Stop trying to cure your procrastination. Instead, start trying to aim it better. Look at your to-do list. Find that one task that makes your stomach turn and put it right at the top. Then, fill the rest of the list with other important, valuable things. And the next time you feel that urge to put off the big, scary thing, give yourself permission to do it by crushing every other task on your list. You might just be surprised by how much you get done. If you enjoyed this perspective, subscribe for more strategies on how to work with your brain, not against it. And I have a question for you. What's your go-to procrastination activity? Let me know in the comments below. You'd be surprised how many of them can be turned into a superpower. Thanks for watching.